on disunity, and the most important part of it is hatred in high school. As you know, we're all high school students now, and it's our second year in high school, and we're finally entering this part of where we learn about our feelings and everything, and the most easiest feeling is hatred. Psychologically, it's just simple, and it affects in the most horrible ways you can ever know. Dylan is a person that I have combined 5 interviews to hide their identities and to let their stories be explained in just one person. Hatred is the most important thing in this unit. It causes the most horrible ways to tear apart people in their friendships, at home, with families and everything. But in school, it's affected the most because this is our future. This is where we start learning how to control this. Dylan knows that hatred starts with first hating themselves. Reason why? We don't know. It just starts like that. It's just something we understand as we don't care anymore about ourselves. Like, people judge us, people start looking at you differently, and you're just like, what am I supposed to do? You end up just looking yourself in the mirror and just being like, who am I? What am I? If you look at yourself in the mirror and just want to break it into a million pieces, how can you be a nice person and a good friend? That brings me to the next slide. Friends, you kind of hate them. You gotta hate them. There's always that, every group has that one person they always hate. They always have it. And you just can't deal with it. It's just something that happens naturally. We can't control it. And it hurts the person that most, and that person ends up hating everyone around them. And those people end up just never seeing how that could destroy their own lives. How it could destroy that person's life in just a second if you just don't tell them the truth. Dylan was one of those people. She was the hated friend. Dylan was always hated. She was the annoying one, the one that was always talking about her problems, the one who trusted everybody, but everybody just talked about it to everyone else. She became very self-conscious because all the rumors that were being spread around her, and it just destroyed her internally, psychologically, and just didn't know what to do. She just needed to tell her parents. She wanted to. She never did. But her parents didn't care at all. Never cared. 37% of parents would tell their doctors that there's something wrong with their children. But the rest of them wouldn't care or wouldn't tell anything. Why? Because they think they could solve it themselves, but it just makes it worse for the kid, and it just feels like they cannot have the guidance from their parents, so they shut up. They never say anything else. They just close themselves off from the world, and it destroys her internally. Dylan needed guidance. Dylan needed to talk to someone, but she could only just say how her day went at school, supposedly how her day went at school. She needed a family. As everybody knows, Lilo and Stitch, Ohana means family, and family means someone gets left behind or forgotten. Well, she looked at friends as family. Her friends were like, oh, they're like my brothers and sisters. They're like, oh, this one's like my mom, she's very protective over me. How everybody sees as friendship. But it's not unification. It's just thinking. It wouldn't help her. She saw how everybody hated her. She felt like she had to move from group to group, forgetting everybody. She had to forget because they left an emotional, psychological scar in her memories of how it's killing her inside, that she cannot be who she wanted to be in front of them. She tried to show them the truth, but all they did was just kick her out of the way, get a little piece from them, and just throw it out. And it just kills her inside to see that she was the one that everybody hated. She wanted to change, but she wanted conformity. She wanted to be herself. But as teenagers now, we don't know who we are. We don't know our identity. We struggle with this long periods of time of like, who am I? What am I supposed to be? And with school forcing us to decide on what our career is going to be, we're just like, I don't know who I am. And it causes more stress, and people just like start separating each other because I'm like, oh, you're not helping me become for my future, because parents end up telling them, oh, your friends are not good for you. Your friends they're just bad influence. And you're just like, I have to leave them then. Some don't, some stay with them, but it ruins friendships, and it just causes all this disunity in our own school and at home. And it's like you're wearing a mask now. You're wearing a mask. Like that girl, she's staring at her own mask. Why? Because she doesn't know who she is, and she doesn't want to wear one. Not at all. And it's just a big struggle. But how are we supposed to do it? Well, she became quiet one day. Dylan became really quiet. She didn't talk. She wanted to just not do anything at all. She ended up tolerating the hate and started trying to be kind. One day she met this girl. She was sitting alone at lunch, and she went up to her because her friends were doing something else and she didn't want to be involved. So she sat next to her, became good friends with her, and 5 months later, she found out that girl was going to kill herself that night if she hadn't talked to her. That was an emotional breakthrough for her, and she just saw it as a motivation to change. But when she tried to change, there was this thing that everybody said. Like, she saw the change, she saw reality revealing in front of her eyes, and she realized that society just sees us as teens. We're just teens. We're all the same. We're all gonna hate. We're all gonna be very abusive over our things. Like, we're just not gonna care. We're not gonna do anything in this world. That if the elderly people do not make us go into this straight path, we're just gonna end up failing and just being like some drug addict in the street or some person that ended up killing themselves the night before. That's how they see us. They either see us like this or that, but they want us to be something else. We're just teens. And quote unquote, we're not just teens, we're different. And she needed to change. So she saw the solution for this as tolerance, kindness. She saw if she tolerated the hatred and started being kind to others even though they hated her so badly and wanted her to die and wanted her to leave the school or anything. She just said, okay. She didn't respond back with hate. She's like, oh, why don't you do that to yourself? No, she tolerated it. So, what I conclude for you is that we should start tolerating and start being kind for the next 2 years, because if we don't, we never know what's going to happen to the people around us. We never know if these people will end up not being here the next day. So, would you all like to be my friend?